So I have my paper all laid out for me. I have wet the back of it and the front of it using a 1.5 inch flat wash brush. And I have my colors all laid out as well. So let me just tell you what I have. So this is raw sienna, burnt sienna, leaf green, olive green, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, royal blue, which is like a phthalo blue, and some quinacridone red. Now that looks like a lot of colors laid out, but what I want to point out to you is what I have is a light and then a darker, and then a light and a darker, so a light green and a darker green, a light blue, a mid-value blue, and a dark blue. And then I've got a little bit of the red, which I will mix in with the burnt sienna in order to darken it down a little bit. You'll see how that goes. So my paper is wet front and back, and I am ready to get started. So to begin with, I'm focusing on the lighter colors. So I've got some small berries, which are a white berry with a little bit of color in them, and just for the shading to show some volume and sort of a little bit of a statement on the end of it, a little dot. And the leaves, we have some light green and some gold colors, a bit of a rosy color in here. Well, let's see what we can do. So I'm going to take the lightest colors to start with. So my raw sienna and my leaf green and a little bit of the cerulean blue to start with. And I'm going to begin by getting some of this light color down. And you can see I'm not adding a lot of extra water to my paint. I'm going to remind you of this a number of times as I'm painting, because what I want to do is get this paint on in a fairly heavy application. That's just the perfect color. And I like the transitions that I have multiple colors going down in there. Let's change it a little bit for the next stroke. And as I'm putting this down, I begin to think about where I would like to place some of the little white berries. This the subject that I'm working on today is dogwood. In October, this is what the plants look like right now, just outside of my back door where I go for a hike. Let's just get some more of this down. And so I'm thinking about where I'm going to put the berries. So I'm going to get a few clustered in this area and a few clustered in here. We'll see how that goes. As I put this color down to start off, I want to get a little bit of that rose into it. That's the quinacridone red. It's a little brighter than I want, so let's tone it down. A bit of green into it. Let's see what that gives us. There we go. And nice. See the variety of color in my strokes. So let's start thinking about those little berries. And I'm going to pick up a round brush. This is a number 10 round, and I'm going to load it with just a wee touch of color. A little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I'm thinking about where these little berries will go, and I'm just going to put a few dots down just to start me off, because the little berries themselves, as I mentioned, they've got this little, some of them have like a little dot on them, a couple colors in there. They don't all, and it's not a guarantee that I'm going to put a berry around that, but it gives me a starting point. And I want a large cluster in one area and a small in another, and then I'll probably get a few bits of the same sort of color up in this top section. So as that's sitting, do I want any more? Maybe just a couple more. Let's put a few in, because anything that I don't use I can always paint over. Because negative painting is a subtractive approach. That means I'm eliminating anything that I don't want, anything that's not working, anything that's a distraction from my subject. All right, so negative painting means that rather than painting the object, so rather than painting the berry, I create it by painting the space around it. So here we go. I'm thinking about that circular shape of the berry. There's one. Let's get another one here. The color at this point, you can see I've got variety of color in here. The color will still flow because my paper is quite wet still. It's going to be wet for a long time because of course I saturated it front and back, and it's laying on this non-porous board, so there's not, the only evaporation that happens is from the surface. The board doesn't soak any up. All right, let's put another little one there. There we go. All right, and this nice warm color that I have around the berries, some of that will become the stems, because if you have a close look at the dogwood plant, the berries, these little white berries are attached to gorgeous little very red stems branching, so we'll try and get some of that in. All right, so you can easily see I've got 4 berries there, 3 berries here. That's my start. Let's get a bit more of this rose color in. And a little bit more red into it, because that is going to be the stemmy section of it. Just get a bit of change in the color. There we go. Ooh, nice. I'm just carving around these shapes. So the brush that I'm using is a 1-inch flat brush. I use it like a chisel. So if I were a sculptor, I would be carving with some sort of a sharp-edged tool. That's basically what I'm doing here, because with negative painting, you are cutting out the shapes, you're painting around them. There we go. Let's get some here. I don't want it to be too much, a lot of little circles. We're just going to have the hint of a few little berries in here. But that's my starting point. And get some cerulean blue in here as well. So I'm still working with these light colors, the light valued colors that are on my palette. Because building with watercolors works best to build from light to dark, or from clean to neutral, bright to neutral. You could say clean to dirty. We can all build in the grays. I like that little bit of red. That's nice. All right, since I've got some of this red colors in here, because I have this rose color in here, I want to make sure that I get some of it up into the top section so that it doesn't just look like a red band through the center of my piece. And I'm thinking about the shape of the leaves, and let's start carving out some of those. So they're quite a nice long leaf with a very skinny little stem. So the leaf is the green of the paper. That was my first wash, the underpaint, or first color, the underpainting. And now I'm starting to cut around it, and I'm using this red to do it in that section. I'll get some more greens up into another area. There's a little bit of green. Let's put some cerulean into it. You notice I haven't added any extra water to it. And there we go. There's another leaf shape. There's a little bit of water just to get it off of the paint off the board, off of my palette. I like to use my painting board, this non-porous surface, as my palette, and I like to work with fresh paint rather than reconstituting little nuggets that have dried, that have been on the palette for years. So I'm just cutting around these first shapes. Green. Get a little more green into this. All right. I hope you can see this. So, okay, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got several leaves created. The first layer established the color of the leaves. That's that light green. And now I've cut around the leaves with this red color. Still quite light in value. I'm going to take that down just a bit. It's a bit too green. There we go. Let's see. There we are. Now, so when I start to build the layers with negative painting, if this is the layer that's in the front, here's a front layer, then I'm going to put my next leaf and tuck it underneath. So it's going to be partially hidden. Just a bit of moisture on the brush to cut that out. It's a little too subtle. Let me see if I can pick up a bit more color. So in order to increase the value so it shows up more, I need to get into the colors that are a little bit darker. So I'm going to add a touch of the burnt sienna. And let's add a little bit of this olive green, which is just a fantastic color. It's so transparent. There, now you can see it better. That's what I'm after. All the time I'm just thinking about the shape of the leaves as well as the design that I'm building. As far as where my area of interest is going to be established and how I want this piece to swing, how I want it weighted, these are things that evolve as I build my painting and change depending on what's happening on the surface. Okay, I've just got this, all this rose stuff here. Let's break that up. Okay, I think I'll get a little bit of this blue into here, just taking that down. And now I need to deal with this bottom section and get some color in here. So that we have a little bit of a flow happening. And so let's use, I like that blue-green. This is just kind of, this very wet. Here's this puddly stuff that I try to avoid until I get into something like this. There we go. Let's leave a little bit of that showing. Kind of a nondescript color. I think I'll warm that up a bit. Let's get a little bit of this green in. We've got some nice greens up in here. This leaf is a bright green, so I'm going to put a bit of it down in here. I'm always working on that idea of repeating a color, repeating a shape. And let's change now and get a little cooler. So how about some stems for these branches? We've got all the leaves up at the top. Let's bring some down through here. I think I'm going to get it a little bit redder than that. Oops, that's going to be more than I need. Well, let's see. There we go. Goodbye, white. You know, that hurts. Watercolor painters, that's a terrible thing to do, but that's what's going to happen on this one. Because the whites of my berries, that's what I want you to look at. That's what I want you to enjoy the lightness of. As soon as this white goes, then you're going to see how that now focuses on that area. Ooh, there's a nice peachy color that I've got down here. That's kind of interesting. That's a little bit too much cerulean. Let's just get something else in here. There we go. And let's see if we can get some darker stuff around some branches. I'm going to pull a few branches down into this section. There we go. There's the cobalt going in, so that's a step up in the value. And this is a bit of burnt sienna. It's still not all that dark, but as long as it's darker than what's on here already, then it's going to show up as a dark. Again, if I've got some here, I want to pull it up into the other sections. I want it to work through the painting. And see how I use this flat brush as a carving tool. This shape right here, I don't think that's very nice, so I'm just going to say goodbye to it. I hope that didn't break your heart. It's going to go. Let's get some more. Take this dark out here. Okay. Time for some real darks. I'm going to pick up a round brush. This is a number 12 round brush, and I am going to take up my darkest dark. So here's that, it's almost like a phthalo blue, royal blue, and then I'm putting in some burnt sienna into it. And I think I'll add just a dash of the red, just because we've got so much red in here. All right, I'm going to put this color down. That is a lot of paint on my brush here. It's not wishy-washy at all. It's quite a heavy application. There's my darks. That will tell you how dark I'm going to take this piece. It has a nice feeling with the light, but I want to show you there's lots of layering. Bye-bye, shape. That's one of the things I like best about negative painting. If there's something in here that I'm not crazy about, I just paint it out. It just goes. Better. Better. Now, this is very dark right into this center section. So let's pull a bit of that deep dark color somewhere else. All right, so here's my choice. I can take it over here, which means this will be the lightest passage, or I can leave this and darken this section down. Let's do it up here. Here's the thick paint going in. Goodbye to that corner. You'll notice that I paint beyond the edges of my paper. I'm getting the paint right out onto my board, which when you're watching me paint, I'm sure it looks kind of strange painting out there, but once I get it off the board, you'll have a chance to see what it looks like. Okay, paint around a few little stems up in that section. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 steps in here. And let's get some of this dark coming down through here so that the eye can move from there to here. I want that bluer. That's pretty much straight paint going on there. I'm going to pick up a little bit of this cerulean. I have it here and here. I know I put it up in that section, but I want another shot of it right there. Like that. So now I'm going to put some down here too. And if it's too strong, you can just rub over it with your finger. I'm happy enough with that. All right, now let's get in and do some fun stuff with the paper down in this area right here. So the paper has been soaking for quite a while. It's got some paint on here, and as I look at it, I need to tip myself sort of sideways to see what the surface of the paper is like. I call this velvet stage. So it's very plump and it's extremely vulnerable now. If I were to go in here with a wet brush load of color, it would just take off and blur. So, or if I scratched into it, I would damage the paper. So I'm going to be careful, but this is a rigger brush. It has a long hair. And if you like doing lots of detail and you use one of those little short brushes with only 2 or 3 hairs, I really would encourage you to try a rigger brush. They're absolutely gorgeous and they do beautiful things. So what I am doing here is this is just wet with a bit of water, and I'm tickling over the surface of the paper with this wet brush. And what happens is I'm creating little backgrounds. As this is sitting, I'm sure you can start to see how that starts to blur. Like so. That's all a timing situation. When you get that, you can also get little starbursts by sprinkling it with some water. I think I'm just going to leave it with that. I'm picking up just some warm color on my brush. I like this warmth that's happening down here, and I'm going to just tap a little bit on there just to give a bit of color. Now I've got shaggy edges here. So as a negative painter, shapes and edges tell my story. So when I have something like this that's not defined, I need to make a decision as to what it's going to be. And I could make it into, I could turn that into a berry, or I could get some more little branches coming there. I just have to decide what it's going to be. And so I have decided I'm going to break this up into some small branches up in that area. As soon as I get that dark against the light like that, then that is really going to draw your eye. It becomes a real strong focal point. Whether it's in the best spot, I'm not sure, but I think it shows what I'm after. Look at those darks going in, just those little points of darks. Let's get some here too. So I'm breaking up the dark area by socking in some more darks. There we go. Nice. And I have a funny shape right here. I stand back and have a look at it. I clean that up. There we go. Oh, I like that little bit of burnt sienna edge that's happening in there. And let's take a little bit of that, just tuck it in here just to break that blue. I liked it. I was anxious to have it, but now it's there. I'm not so crazy about it. That's a bit better. Okay. Let me see if I can tighten up a few of these berries. Now the thing is, as far as tightening up the shapes go, you can always do that when the painting is dry. We get hard edges then. And I'm trying to avoid anything too hard, but I do need to define a few things here. Let's just clean up a few bits. That's better. And this one, let's get that fixed up. This is since it's the lightest light against the darkest dark, it better be right, better be well defined. There we go. Soften it now. There we go. And some dark hit right in here. And how about just a bit right there? Too dark. And I just soften it out. I've got one there. Put it, just tidy that up just a wee bit. All right. I'm going to make an adjustment up at the top. Everything is leaning too much off here, taking off out of the paper. I'm just going to take that down. There we go. Fix that edge. So it's not as dark a value as at this corner, and it is a different shape. So I think I'm going to accept that. Clean you up down here. That's not a good shape in here. So at this stage of the painting process, I like to look at the things that I've made, the shapes I've created, and see whether there's anything that really bugs me. So it's sort of the fine-tuning of the piece. Good time to stand back and have a look. That's a little bit strong right here. There we go. I'll put something else in there. How about a little bit of this, so that there's some color change happening in there. Oh, that's a funny shape. Shapes and edges tell the story, so I'm very particular. If I see a shape that I don't like, it really bugs me. So I will just go in and deal with it. Sometimes it means kind of a heavy-handed fix, which is what's happening right here. But it must be done, because I have a bad shape. Let's see if we can fix that a bit more. Better. There's a better shape. I like that better. Now let's deal with this section in here. How about, I'm going to try and pull a little bit of these lines. I'm going to do some more down in here. I'm going to just tickle this water through here. We'll see what happens. Get a little dark right into that section. Right there. And put some water through there. No guarantee that that's going to work, but we'll see what happens. And let's do the same thing down in here as well. Get some more of these little fine lines happening. There they go. Now they're showing up a bit better. So this top section where I've put that bit of water on, I can bring some light lines, can make them happen. That paint is really quite thick. This is a little soft brush. If I tickle over the area, it will bring me back a little bit of the light. And I can decide whether I like it or not. And if I don't like it, if I'm not crazy about it, then you know that we can always go back in here. Look at this thick, dark stuff that I've got. And repaint it. There we go. Paint around a few shapes. Shot of the blue right into here. I mean, I'm working on almost a number 10 value up in this section. That's pretty much straight phthalo blue and burnt sienna. Nice, I like it. I like the dark going in there. Let's just build a few more. So I'm looking at where this dark comes. It needs to be, I need to think about, 2/3 mid value and then 1/3 dark, or 2/3, 1/3, so that it's not, I'm not just dividing this piece in half, which I guess that's okay. That up. There we go. That's a nice soft way of dealing with that. All right, there's a little bit of red here that I think is just a titch too much. So I'm going to just break that up just a little bit. There we go. Right. I think it's time to take this off of the board. So because this non-porous surface doesn't absorb any of the water, this painting will stay wet for a very long time, and I need to take it off in order to get it to dry. So I'm just going to transfer it onto a wooden board. You can see what's happening with it. And then I will set it aside and let it dry, and we'll have a look at it when it's dry.